Hello, this is Mark. I'm going to talk to you about a project called PT3. PT3 is built for Pivotal Tracker. Pivotal Tracker manages software requirements called user stories, which are high-level specification of what a piece of software under development should do. The stories have a task list of line items that can be checked off and a comments history. Related stories are grouped together in epics, so you may have a shopping cart epic with individual stories that talk about the shopping cart and so on. Stories start out in the icebox, which is a repository where they sit until they're estimated for their difficulty, fleshed out, and prioritized. Everything in the icebox you can move up and down depending on its priority. Okay, let's add a story right now. Push A and story name, and I get to select what type of story, feature, bug, chore, or release, and how difficult it is. Okay, now we got something to play with. Clicking start, well, we can't click start because we have to rate the story, how difficult it is. 1 point. When we click start, we'll put an icebox story into the workflow. It will now appear in the backlog pane or the current pane depending on the speed of which things are being done, known as the project's velocity. Up here, how many story points you have done over time on average is your velocity. The story will appear in the My Work pane for whoever it is assigned or whoever clicked that button if it was not assigned. So it's either here or here. It's probably here. Story name right there. Okay, so it started, and you would click finish when you finished with the story. As we can see, it'll also end up in my work pane, since I was the one that clicked the button. Work is done on a story, comments made, attachments added to it until it's complete and functional. Then you would click the finish button. Once the story is finished, in its finished state, it will be eligible to enter the delivered state, and from then it can be either accepted or rejected, usually by the customer or quality assurance. So I'm just going to walk this through, accept or reject. If we accept, it gets put into the done, and it appears green. All is fine and dandy. Let's take it back out and restart it from the beginning here. So it's unstarted. We'll put it back in the icebox because we're going to use it again. Pivotal Tracker is a decent implementation of this type of a system. It's fairly lightweight and changes appear in real time to all participants. If something on here were to change, it would go through a color rotation and I'd be able to see that somebody's changed that item. Now, I read a while back that your application is just a collection of details, and getting those details just right is everything. This is the mistake I think Pivotal Tracker has made. They didn't polish the details. This means there's a gold mine of value waiting to be exploited. First of all, it's very mouse-centric. Let's look at the hotkeys. I want to push Shift ? Here comes the hotkeys. Not too many of them. Most of them have to do with activating a pane. This is not good for most programmers and most people doing things that are going to be more keyboard-centric and want to move through things quicker. So you got a couple of keys here. One's for search, one's for help, one's for add a story, one's for add epic. The rest of them just activate panes, like I said. There's no such thing as the currently selected item. So every time you do something to an item, you have to do it with a mouse. A key won't help you because the system doesn't know which item you mean. And finally, the interface is rather drab. I hold the firm belief that if what you're doing is cool, it should look cool. It's good for morale. With these things bugging me, I decided to fix the damn thing, at least a little. Well, that's what I thought when I started. But how do you fix a web application that's not yours? Well, with technology. There's some really cool tech called user scripting that allows you to inject your own script into web pages and do what you want within certain bounds. For Firefox, it's a plugin called Greasemonkey, and if we look at the Greasemonkey wiki, it'll tell us that these type of scripts, user scripts, run in other browsers too with a little bit of tweaking. So I started working on the script, aiming to make a few quick changes and be done with it. but I decided I was creating a lot of value in very short time frames. And when you're doing that, it's awful hard to stop. I ended up with 5,000 lines of script and getting enough bang into it that I think it could be put on the market as a test beta and see how people respond. Personally, I think I've improved the user interface of the app 300%, so I call this project Pivotal Tracker +++, or PT3 for short. Back here, we're actually looking at the Pivotal Tracker project for PT3. This is my checklist of what I have to do and things I want to do. Now let's take a look at it in action. Okay, we have a complete style makeover in a sunset theme, which includes transition effects, new icons, and everything. Everything I'm going to show you comes from this script. None of it's available in the original application. First, if we need more room, we can toggle the header visibility in 3 steps with the H key. It takes away the top part and the middle part and all of it, and bring it all back. Every pane now has an icon and a column index. We can activate the pane by pressing the number, or we can activate the next or previous pane with Alt page up and Alt page down. So if I switch over to pane 2, pane 1, Alt page down, Alt page up, so we have an active pane. So let's add some more columns and see how the interface reacts. If you get enough columns going, what happens is the interface, part of the columns go off screen, and in the original interface, this wasn't quite evident that you could scroll back and forth with the right and left arrow keys. Now, if you want to adjust the column size, you can use Control-Alt plus and minus. Control-Alt plus, make it larger, larger still, minus, 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 till you get to the bottom. You can't go anymore. Now we got a bunch of columns going. If you click on, say, column 4, which you can't see, I touch number 4, and it takes me to there, and it scrolls automatically back to 1, activates that column, scrolls automatically. When you click on a column header, it'll activate the column. Shift F4 will close the column and activate the next most useful column. Now for some good stuff. While tags are used to group items, you can see some tags in here, filtering the column is what we really want. So we just press period, and the filter box comes up, and we start typing some text like ADD, and it filters out the items. If we want to keep that filter, we can hit enter, and it'll show up in our header. Get rid of it, clear, or we can go ADD again, keep the filter, and if we want to clear it by the keyboard, we just hit filter again, period, and then escape, and it'll clear the filter. Alright, so let me do that one more time. ADD, keep the filter. Now, what can we do? We got filtered stuff. We can check all the items with Alt-A. Alt-A will check all the items, and you can see the little check boxes have lit up. Let's turn off the filter so we can show that it just checked the visible ones. Okay, wonderful. Now we got some checked. Normally you could go, this menu becomes active. Normally you could go up here and mess with this menu to do stuff with the checked things, but one of the most common things you do with checked things is put labels on them. So instead of dealing with a menu, we just go L, and we can put labels on those items, or remove labels from those items, whichever we want. Now to unselect all, Alt-Shift-A, Shift-A, and that unselects all the items in the selected column. Okay, that covers checking items, but what about selecting them? Well, currently you can only select one item, so let's do that. For the active column, up and down will move a selector through the list. You can see the little green, that's our selector. So now we got an active item to deal with. So what can we do with the active item? Let's go back up to the top here. And the first thing we can do is put in this estimation. I can type Alt-0, Alt-1, Alt-2, Alt-3 to give this an estimate. So I'll go Alt-3. Now that estimated that item. We can toggle its checkbox with the space bar. We can trigger the flyover. Normally a flyover is when you hover over this box here it shows you the contents of this particular item. To trigger the flyover by the keyboard, we just hit backslash and it'll show that item. And of course, to edit the item, we hit enter. Notice inside here, the original application has links to copy the item ID or URL. Right here, we can copy the URL. Here's the ID. Unfortunately, in web applications, the only way to put stuff on the clip is to have a user do an actual click. A keystroke won't work. This functionality has now been moved to the item's face, so we no longer have to edit the item to get at these clipboard functions. Also, in the description, you see some images and an audio player. These were created by scanning for URLs in the text and turning them into objects. When you hover over the image, you'll see a flyover in actual size. This also works in the preview flyover too. If you hover over that, I'll show you that in a minute. This is the input area, but right now it's holding objects, but when you click on it, it turns it back into the text. So the script is looking for these URLs and turning them into the appropriate objects. Okay, and here's the flyover, and the flyover, the hovers work too. While you're going up and down with the up and down keys, if you hold down Alt, it'll show you the flyover of each one as you go through the list. One of the principal tasks with items is to sort them by priority. In the original application, you had to use the mouse to drag an item into position. I showed you that before. We drag it down here, put this below that one above this one. What we want is the keyboard to do that. Now, you just go Control down, and it'll move it down one, Control up, move it back up. That was a tricky bit to code. Originally, to add an item, you press A, which still works, but the insert key will add an item. And even better, if you're working on an item and want to start a new one, like you're done editing it, you can hit insert and it'll save your current item and start on the next. Example of that is this. I hit insert, I type in 1, and I cruise down through here. I don't want that, some of this, and I say, hey, I'm done. I hit insert, it saves that one, I'm on the next one. Here's the one I just made, and I'm on a new one. And I can hit escape from there. So now we have a new story in there. As I said, the clipboard features have been moved outside to this clipboard menu. So if I click on here, I want to get a menu, and each of these, instead of clicking on like a normal menu, I actually have to click on the icon in order to get the text. This is because this is a technical limitation. Now you can get all the fancy stuff on your clipboard without having to go into the item and edit it. Okay, are you ready for super cool? We know that an MP3 URL will magically turn into a player. What we want is to record our voice and put it on here reasonably easily. Are you ready? Press R to start the record dialog. Dialog will pop up and you wait a minute. And we click to record. And we allow. And it's recording me right now, theoretically. I don't know if it's doing it with the screencast or not. But once we're done, we click stop. We got a recording. We click here to save. And it takes a minute. Find this URL. Copy it to the clipboard. Close this dialog. And we want to put it somewhere. This looks good. We put this here. Paste the URL. Save. Now, fly over here. We should get a player with my voice on it. Due to that recording being an outside service, the recordings are only kept a few months, but it's still useful until I find something better to replace it with. And finally, well, almost finally, is the feedback. You click on the tab which opens a feedback box for feedback or bugs for PT3, which go to my user voice account for review and consideration. The other beautiful part is that I can make this whole PT3 project public and so users can watch the recommendations and suggestions implemented.